Hello, everyone. It's almost the end of January. February is almost upon us, and it's time to go over the news, breaking news, fake news, real news, good news, bad news, whatever news that has come and gone this past week. And let's take a look at all that while we can. Peter Dinklage faces backlash from other famous dwarves over Snow White criticism. So earlier this week, Peter Dinklage had a problem with. He did a podcast, and on the podcast he said, "It's like, really, Disney? I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but really, Disney, you're going to do the whole thing about dwarves and this whole Snow White thing? That's been done. That's his take. He feels that time is done. Here he is in Game of Thrones." Peter Dinklage has become very outspoken about the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs movie, the live action that Disney wants to do. He's not happy about it. Dinklage's complaint was about the depiction of the dwarfs. So I'm guessing midget is a derogatory term, right? And little people and dwarves are I'm just, I only meet one or two in my life. I gotta be respectful here. Mojado wetback is disrespectful, right? Peter Dinklage slammed the upcoming movie for its depiction of little people. On Mark Maron's What the Fuck podcast, Dinklage said, "I was a little taken aback when they were very proud to cast a Latina actress as Snow White, but you're still telling the story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Take a step back and look at what you're doing there. It makes no sense to me. You're progressive in one way, but then you're still making that fucking backwards story about seven dwarfs living in a cave together. What the fuck are you doing, man? Have I done nothing to advance the cause for my soapbox? I guess I'm not loud enough." That's right. To avoid stereotypes from the original animated film, we are taking a different approach. So this is Disney's response. With these seven characters, I've been consulting with members of the dwarfism community. A statement to the Hollywood Reporter said. There's some actors. A few of the dwarf actors from Dinklage's, his culture or his race. I guess you could say race. Could be handicap. It is a handicap in a way. I have hemophilia. That's a handicap. Severe type A. It makes me sick to my stomach to think there are seven roles for dwarfs that can't get normal acting roles, or very few and far between roles, and now they're gone because of this guy. Dylan Postal told Daily Mail. Dylan Postal, or Postal, made his name originally working for WWE Hornswoggle. Yeah, I remember Hornswoggle. Yeah. He also took a role in a new Leprechaun movie and also appeared on The Muppets. Of course, who else played a Leprechaun? That horror movie, remember? Warwick Davis, the Ewok, Wicket. Whatever happened to Wicket? Is Wicket going to come back in the Disney Star Wars? I wonder. Peter Dinklage is the biggest dwarf actor probably of all time, but it doesn't make him the king dwarf, Postal said. So this is Hornswoggle from WWE. When he was cast as a little person in Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones or Elf or this or that or the other thing, those checks cashed just fine. Hypocrisy, right? Postal says Snow White is a fairy tale and dwarves are part of the focus. There are other dwarf actors who would love the opportunity. Maybe some of the actors from the Lollipop gear from Munchkinland, right? I know me and six other little people who would love this role. Disney called me. Jeff Brooks, a 62-year-old from Dallas, told the site, "This would be a dream role for me. I'm begging for one." I remember one little person who was in a soap opera. He passed away. And sometimes that might, like when you're overweight, that might be a thing. It's a lifespan. You only have one life. There was another little person who was part of, Kid Rock? Kid Rock? Wasn't that it? The guy who was Pamela Anderson. Wasn't that her husband or former husband? Kid Rock? I remember. So my take on this is that as a Chicano, and this is the same complaint I have about Naomi, okay? When any white dude writes about minorities, I always worry about them being patronizing or over the top or laying it on thick that they're well-to-do. Not all black people have to live in the ghettos. Not all Chinese have to speak with a Chinese accent. Not all little people have to be dwarves in mystical worlds. But I do like to see some grounded in reality. Now, this is Disney. This is a fantasy movie kind of thing. So you're going to have those things. I mean, you can put children. You can get children to play the roles, but the children wouldn't have a lot of time, right? So CGI, I think there was a version of Snow White where they used like mystical fairies or CGI characters. I don't know what the best solution is. You know what I mean? Like, what can you do? Keep in mind, Peter Dinklage also played in Pixels. Remember Pixels? He played that stupid goofball character. He played a funny character. And I liked him in X-Men Days of Future Past. So I think, every project that is going to depict somebody who's not white you get a lot of people to talk about it, especially those in that group. So the fact that Hornswoggle says something means that you just got to talk to a lot of people and then come up with your own answer. That's what I think. Free Nichelle. Protesters want to liberate Star Trek actor Nichelle Nichols, who was Uhura, the original series, from conservatorship. The actor has been diagnosed with dementia, but campaigners believe the legal arrangement is not in her best interest. Now, this sounds familiar. There was a protest. I'm not sure where this was. Beautiful. Oh, God, she was beautiful. Well, she's old now, and she can't walk anymore, like Ricardo Montalban in his last years. But she was something. Of course, she had an affair with Gene Roddenberry. I remember that. In the wake of Britney Spears' emancipation, some of Britney's fans have turned their attention to Star Trek actor Nichelle Nichols. Last week, many protesters, a dozen at least, had a mixture of Free Britney activists and fans demonstrating outside Stanley Moss Courthouse in Los Angeles chanting Free Nichelle. She's been living under a conservatorship. Her son, Kyle Johnson. Now, Kyle Johnson, I remember Kyle Johnson, I think, as a little boy, and there was a book called William Shatner's My Star Trek Memories, in which he brought home Nichelle Nichols home from a car accident. She was trying to go on the set of doing an episode of Star Trek back in the 1960s, like, oh, everything's fine. But then she collapsed because she had been in a serious car accident. So William Shatner drove her home to her house, and her son is like, what'd you do to my mother? And William Shatner, according to him, he said, oh, no, your mom's fine. She just had a serious car accident, and or I'm not sure exactly what his exact words were, but she had a fall, but she'll be fine. She just needs to rest, something like that. I mean, what do you tell a child, right? So this is the same kid who's now an adult, Kyle Johnson, successfully petitioned to be his mother's conservative after her former manager. Gilbert Bell was accused of being abusing Nichols financially. Protesters believe that Nichols is of sound mind and wants to be released from the arrangement. So, petition to be his mother's conservative after... Nichols is best known for playing Lieutenant Uhura from the 1960s. A civil rights advocate, her influence was felt off screen. After criticizing NASA's lack of diversity in a speech, Nichols volunteered to work with the space agency for making recruitment and training films. I remember that. She also did Trip Trucker. That was a blaxploitation kind of film. And advocating for people such as astronaut Mae Jemison to reply after rejection. Jemison, a longtime fan of Brenda Nichols, was the first black woman in space. Fantastic. Black History Month is coming, right? You can do this one. Mae Jemison for your paper, including high school paper. We're going to do whatever we can to make sure that there's lasting change, and not just Brittany, but not just Nichelle, but everyone who is trapped in this corrupt system. The Free Nichelle campaigners are largely following a lead of 26-year-old Angelique Fawcett, a producer and actor who first met Nichols in 2012. Fawcett has several pictures and videos with Nichelle on her social media as proof of their close relationship and claims that she is carrying out Nichols' wishes. Fawcett believes that Nichols does not need a conservatorship and is being abused by her son's control of her finances. Now, that's a pretty campaign there. Fawcett has filed several petitions with the court seeking to end Nichols' conservatorship. And so far declined. The court has so far declined to intervene and recently ruled that Fawcett does not have standing to lodge her complaints. There is no question that Nicole suffers from dementia. Her diagnosis predates the conservatorship as early as 2013, when Nichols was hospitalized for pancreatitis. My dad had pancreatitis. There were indications that former manager Bell may have exercised an undue amount of influence to get Nichols to sign paperwork by giving the power of attorney. In a GoFundMe established by her sister, Marian Nichols smothers her family alleges that her. After getting Nichols to grant him the power of attorney, Bell transferred the deed on her home to himself in 2018. That triggered the petition for a conservatorship. So there's a lot of bullshit, legal bullshit that went on. I mean, morally it was wrong, but legally they got away with it. So if Nichols has already been rescued from an abusive situation, why are fans protesting against her son acting as her conservator? Fawcett has filed suit again, claiming that Nichols doesn't need a conservator, merely support in managing her affairs. She also alleges that Nichols' son Kyle has isolated Nichols and acted against his mother's wishes by selling her Woodland Hills home and moving her to New Mexico or Mexico. Protesters are also concerned that Johnson may not be an adequate caregiver, which highlights a problem. So that's how she is now. She can barely move around. Who may not. So with lack of other options for people who may not be capable of caring for themselves, she is getting old, but it's like, she suffered a mild stroke, which might have contributed to her handicap. So all this elder care they talked about, alleged that the sale of the house was unnecessary. Yeah, so there's some bullshit. Her son Kyle says that the proceeds of the sale are in an account to fund his mother's care. I recall seeing a video. I would not link this video. It's just kind of horrific. Basically, her mom has an argument with her son, and her son is trying to come at her. I don't know if he was going to assault her or he was going to hit her or what he was going to do. But she told them in her own words, in Nichelle's own words, that she can take care of herself as far as her financial needs and whatever business she wants to run for herself. That while she's not physically fit anymore, but she can still do things for herself. And her son was arguing with her, and she was screaming, and I couldn't watch that anymore. It was horrific. I mean, her son's got problems. This is sad. I mean, what James Doohan, we'll get to James Doohan in a minute, but what James Doohan went through in his health, but this is messed up. Worse than William Shatner's ego, I guess. And going from Uhura to Scotty, that was a weird relationship in Star Trek V, wasn't it? The first Vulcan flight to carry DNA of Star Trek actor or Star Trek creator, ashes of the wife and chief engineer Scotty. So, the DNA of Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry will accompany the ashes of his wife, Nichelle Roddenberry, and the actor who played Scotty, James Doohan, in a mission dubbed the Enterprise flight scheduled for later this year. That's going to be interesting. When I think of the Lieutenant, the Lieutenant was an old show that was in black and white, and that was the precursor to Star Trek. I was looking up the history of Gene Roddenberry last year for his 100th birthday. He'll be 100. I guess he turns 101 this year. But it had actors like Leonard Nimoy and Gary Lockwood, who was in 2001 Space Odyssey. But I don't think James Doohan was in The Lieutenant. I know Nichelle Nichols was, but not James Doohan, I think. I think it was like somebody else got him, I think. Celestis, a Houston-based space memorial services company, said this week that the ashes of Canadian actor James Doohan and actress Nichelle Roddenberry, who died in '08, will accompany the funny thing about that is that I didn't even know she passed away on the night I watched Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, on just a random day on VHS. That tape aged, and that was so weird. Anyway, so all of the DNA of the three people, Gene Roddenberry's ashes were scattered in space in 1997, 6 years after his death. So they're DNA samples of her late husband. So it's kind of weird. We're very pleased to be fulfilling with this mission. The promise I made to Nichelle Barrett in '97 that one day we would fly her and her husband, Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry, together on a deep space memorial flight, said Charles M. Schaefer, the CEO of Celestis. There will be more than 150 capsules that contain the cremated remains, samples, and messages of Star Trek fans who paid to be blasted into the final frontier after their deaths. United Space Launch, a joint venture of Lockheed Martin and Boeing that Space's Services government contracts, has agreed to accommodate the remains as part of an unrelated mission. What a fitting tribute to the Roddenberry family. Star Trek fans to be part of the maiden flight of Vulcan, our next generation rocket. Wow, it's not a red ship. It's a rocket. Sometimes nonfiction, real life can be a little bit boring than fiction, and sometimes not. I mean, it's such a legacy. I mean, the original series isn't as popular as the Next Generation is, and those people are getting old too. But man, it's not much less to say about it. But if I die, do I want to go out in space? Maybe I just want to be mysteriously gone and nobody knows whatever happened to me. But yeah. Rest in peace to all those actors. I liked Sarek. Mark Leonard, who played that. And speaking of the other Scotty, Simon Pegg, the son of James Doohan, actually was a transporter on the transport chief, or below chief, I guess, on the first movie, but I remember that. This is from Into Darkness. But Simon Pegg gives an update to Collider, and he did it 3 days ago. So there's a Star Trek movie dated for 2023, but the Mission Impossible 7-star gave Collider a mini update what's been happening for Star Trek 4. There's been so many different different hands changing here, but let's see what the update says here. I don't know much. I met Matt briefly, and he seems like a great guy. So this would be, according to this, Matt Shackman, writer Matt Shackman, J.J. Abrams, the producer, and I guess Noah Hawley's still directing it. I don't know. I didn't like that S.J. Clarkson, or whatever her name was. That didn't work out. People didn't like what I had to say, but the movie didn't come out. I don't know much. I met Matt briefly. He seems like a great guy. I love the work he did on WandaVision. Okay. It's always waiting with these things because the world is in an uncertain place. COVID's thrown everything into a spin. It's not all COVID's fault, but it's people want to put out something or not. There's so many factors that have to align in order for these things to happen. I'm just quietly waiting for news, basically. And I texted JJ the other day and said, "Tell me what's happening." He's just like, "We're waiting for news. I'd love to see more adventures in the Calvin universe. Obviously, any chance I get to work with those actors, I'll leap at it. I'll bet it's going to be a little sad this time, but stay tuned." So there's not much here. You've seen my art for this stuff, and I think if there had to be another movie, this would have to be it. This would have to be the undiscovered country of Captain Kirk in his late 40s, early 50s. It's there's not much more you can do. I would give him gray hair. Give Chris Pine let Chris Pine keep his gray hair because Captain Kirk will get old. He doesn't have to have the William Shatner exact hair. But more that sort of double-breasted yellow, like a yellow, red, and blue, gold, red, and blue kind of uniforms. And just like, have him live on a planet with David, like 8-year-old David, just on a farm on the Genesis planet, the half Earth, half moon, shattered moon planet. And Spock and Uhura, go on the Enterprise. I would have like Kelvin Timeline Picard and the Next Generation crew like step on this long plank outside the Delta Enterprise, and that would be like, that's it. Picard says we got work to do, and that would be the end of it. Like we would just see Picard in like a 10-second cameo, because it would deal with aliens over 75 years, and Spock leaves and then comes Picard. That's the way I would end the whole thing. Just show Picard at the end. That's it. If there's another movie that comes out of it, that's another movie. But whatever. At least you sow the seeds of a Next Generation Kelvin thing for somebody else to do. But it may never happen. I mean, they did 3 movies and a video game, so I'm happy for them anyway. Now, this is some local news. Dozens of guns among items stolen from cargo trains in Los Angeles. They were among the items stolen by thieves who raided cargo containers aboard trains near downtown. How the fuck does that happen? Police arrested 3 people last summer carrying new .22 caliber handguns, the LA Times reported on Sunday. A trace of the weapons revealed that they came from a batch of 36 handguns reported missing as they were being shipped by train to Tennessee, police officials said. One of the suspects said the guns had come from cargo trains in LA, Lincoln Heights rail yards, where widespread thefts have been reported. Shortly afterward, LA police and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, Explosives arrested 2 other suspects with shotguns. Those weapons were determined to be part of a missing shipment of 46 shotguns. Only a handful of the 82 guns have known to have been stolen from trains passing through Lincoln Heights have been recovered. Investigators are not yet sure how many weapons have been pilfered, Captain German Hurtado told the Times. I've got 24 years in LAPD, ex-military, secret clearance, and I have to wait 10 days to get a new firearm. And these guys are going into these containers with no locks and getting guns. No locks, said Hurtado. Okay? These guns were unguarded, unprotected. God knows how many guns have been stolen that way. Yeah, Hurtado, I hear you. The cargo thefts gained national attention earlier this month after local TV stations showed images of thousands of discarded boxes of stolen packages blanketing the tracks. No mention of the stolen guns was made when Governor Gavin Newsom recently led a cleanup. So, obviously, they're not wearing a mask either, I'm sure. It's ridiculous. We have so many gangs, so many drugs, so many wars. My dad passed away with enough guns to wage a gang war for like a whole 3-day weekend. And my mom sold the guns to the sheriffs. And, I don't know. You have too many guns to collect, right? But this is even worse because my dad used to lock up his guns in a cabinet, lock up, in a safe or wherever he had to lock them up. And it's ridiculous. How do we fix these things? Waste so much time with those guns and then they don't even have to be loaded. They just take them out of the damn box cars. Like, what are you thinking? Are you thinking? No. There needs to be security. There needs to be locks. There needs to be better ways to transport these things, or even transport them by fucking plane. If you can transport the guns by plane, do it. Or military chopper. If you just get the military involved and have them transport the guns, then let them do it. Why can't that happen? Don't they do routine things? Couldn't this be? This is just stupid. It's like, it's like selling beer, or not even that. Like if you have a liquor license, right? You sell beer outside your front house and somebody steals it. It's like that commercial. That's why we don't do it we don't do it like that, So this is a shitty system. Clean this system now. Okay, 20-minute mark, and law enforcement personnel leaving, losing jobs due to vaccine mandate. So last year, they didn't want to enforce vaccines for the LASD, Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. The law enforcement personnel are leaving Los Angeles departments for like LAPD and the LA County Sheriffs due to COVID vaccine mandates. So some are retiring, others asking for transfers, yet others like Michael McMahon are in the middle of hearings losing their jobs. During the Fox 11 broadcast, we mistakenly identified the law enforcement group he co-founded. It's a critical distinction. Many of the officers explained they are losing jobs and retirements. Those transferring to other departments will lose seniority. Many have lost relationships with friends. Even family have faced stinging criticism. Is it worth it, McMahon? If McMahon says yes, he's speaking for many others who want a chance to share their point of view. So that's an attractive woman. So I don't like vaccine mandates. They don't guarantee shit. As Joe Rogan said, because Joe Rogan's not a doctor. I'm a dumbass too, okay? But we're not scientists, but there are studies that have proven, there are people that can tell you, there are experts who are not part of the narrative, that you can still catch the disease, you can still give the disease, even if you had 100 vaccines, 1,000 vaccines. It is not anybody's job to tell you, unless they're your primary care physician, to tell you you have to take the vaccine or else. Because only my doctor, who's been my doctor for 20 years, can tell me whether or not, I should take the vaccine. She suggests I could, but I don't need it. And honestly, it's like, what is it going to guarantee? I understand that my doctor had to vaccinate to continue working, but it's ridiculous. It's like, you see what Boris Johnson had done last week. And I want to see that behavior continue outward to other countries, to us. I want to take off these masks. I want to be able to go back and do these things, the things I want to do. I still think like people who work on food should keep their masks on, because you're breathing on our food, like making our burgers and pizzas. But we're not applying our common sense. We're not applying any sense. So this is not good. If law enforcement leaves, who's going to take over? This is the way to defund the police? You want the gangs to take over? They ain't gonna. You think the police are so terrible? The gangs aren't going to be any nicer to you. They ain't going to be nicer to you, ever. I still remember a time when VNE, these stupid fuckers, had like posted up their name in like these wooden letters outside a liquor store, and the sheriff's made them take it down, because I don't want gangs running anything quote unquote legit. No, you can't trust any gang. Once you're in debt to them, in place of the police, you're always going to be in debt to them. The police at least are supposed to be civil, right? But once you're in debt to a gang, you better stay in debt or you die. That's how it is. Now this is dealing with Neil Young versus Joe Rogan. Neil Young being an old musician, an old fart. Joe Rogan responds to Spotify backlash over COVID misinformation. So he's being accused of promoting misinformation on a show. Musician Neil Young removed his solo songs and albums from the streaming service Spotify on Thursday. Joe Rogan responded to criticisms of his podcast. So basically, Neil Young was like, either Joe Rogan's off the air or I am. So he took all his songs off. They took all his music off, right? The Joe Rogan Experience, which is called out for spreading COVID misinformation in the wake of Young removing his music from Spotify. Joni Mitchell also successfully removed her music from the service. Okay, well, that's up to them. So this is, I guess, what he says here. If we can get that going there. If not, we can't. On Sunday, Rogan said he had no hard feelings toward Neil. In the video, Rogan defended his choice to bring on guests like Robert Malone.
I wanted to make a video to address some of the controversy that's been going on over the past few days. And first of all, to say thank you to everyone that sent love and support. I truly, truly appreciate it. And it's been very nice to hear from you. I wanted to make this video, first of all, because I think there's a lot of people that have a distorted perception of what I do, maybe based on sound bites or based on headlines of articles.
Yeah, this happens a lot.
Disparaging. The podcast has been accused of spreading dangerous misinformation, specifically about 2 episodes. A little bit about some other ones, but specifically about 2. One with Dr. Peter McCullough and one with Dr. Robert Malone. Dr. Peter McCullough, the term misinformation, especially today, is that many of the things that we thought of as misinformation just a short while ago are now accepted as fact. Like, for instance, 8 months ago, if you said, if you get vaccinated, you can still catch COVID and you can still spread COVID, you'd be removed from social media.
Yeah, this is true. What he's saying is fucking true. It still is in some ways.
That's accepted as fact. If you said, I don't think cloth masks work, you would be banned from social media.
Always.
Now,
This is,
repeatedly stated on CNN. If you said, I think it's possible that COVID-19 came from a lab, you'd be banned.
Banned again. Banned. Exactly.
Now, that's on the cover of Newsweek. All of those theories that at one point in time were banned were openly discussed by those 2 men that I had on my podcast that have been accused of dangerous misinformation. I do not know if they're right. I don't know because I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist. Right. I'm just a person who sits.
So I'll draw that. So Friday, people said delete Spotify was trending on social media. People had canceled their subscriptions. Some Spotify customers tweeted Thursday they weren't able to message a live customer service agent when trying to cancel their service after hearing news of the Young music being removed. They shut down their customer support due to unprecedented. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things going on. A person familiar with the matter said Friday that Spotify's customer support was working as usual with live agents. You could barely hear Joe Rogan's voice in there, but it's really like, what is misinformation? Should misinformation be banned? No. I mean, this is not, people accused of Trump, you're accusing our former president of being a dictator who was above United States simulated laws and killed people and burned books, burned information, right? Grobanov, who had a book about eugenics, Hitler changed the books and made that into about Jews versus Germans. So here we have misinformation. And I'm turning into Cara Dune, Gina Carano here, but I just want to see all the sides of a story before I know what to really do. You know what I mean? That's how I feel about it, and that's how I still will feel about it. The Steam Deck will finally launch in late February, around February 25th. Valve announced this, and I didn't get any notification there. Just that this is all on a tweet, okay? So on that date, those who reserved a Steam Deck will have the opportunity to complete their purchase with units shipping to customers starting on February 28th. Valve did not mention how decks will be available for general retail sales. So they'll have 72 hours to complete their payment. If they decline, the company will move on to the next person. So I'm hoping I have the money ready. I think I'm mostly done buying a lot of the Switch games. Breath of the Wild 2 or Scourge of the Wild or Blood of the Wild, whatever they call the next Zelda game. That's the only one I probably would get. Or Splatoon 3. That's about it. After Splatoon 3 and Zelda, I don't think there's anything more I could look forward to. Lego Star Wars I can get on Steam Deck. Also Pal World. So we'll see what happens. I'm hoping I'm going to save my money very carefully. February 25th. So I don't think my email will come in for this date because I was not one of the early birdies to order this. I ordered mine on the second or third day available. Remember that whole thing I showed you, the whole when they were posting on eBay the pre-orders and flipping those scalping those prices. That was bullshit for like a whole day. Now, I covered this before earlier this week. West Side Story started to play HeMan in new Masters of the Universe film. Kyle Allen's going to been greenlit, I guess, to be the HeMan Prince Adam in a new live action. So my final thoughts on this is that I don't want this to be a fucking musical. I don't want this to be, beefcake, Kyle Allen, showing off his muscles and there's no substance. I mean, I want there to be something more, and I don't think we're going to get that. I think we're going to get the Netflix sort of stupid side of this. I really hope they're going to make it something. If you try to make it for kids, it won't work. It will not work. You got to go back to the 2002 He-Man. Look at Heavy Metal movie, the 1981 movie. Look at the great stuff in that. Look at the great fantasies that were told in Heavy Metal and 300 and you look at the 2002 cartoon. Just look at that stuff. Jesus. Anyway, before we close out. Goals. What are your goals for this week? Do some cooking. I want you to try to do some cooking, whether you're using Hamburger Helper, Rice-A-Roni. You look at a recipe in the back of a box, back of a tin can, a soup can. One of those instant meals, something, an Asian meal, a Mexican meal, something. You look at the back of a can of beans. It could be Goya beans. It could be anything, okay? And make a recipe out of it. I use my Tomb Raider cookbook. I have another cookbook for casseroles. Anything. This is a casserole, right? You can add vegetables or tomatoes or celery to this. Whatever makes you feel great. Try something today. Don't just go out for fast food. Don't just get a box dinner, a Hungry Man or whatever. Make your own thing. Get some ground beef, get some real cheese, get some of the powdered cheese, and make this lasagna here. Try it. See how it is. See how it fits for you. And that's the news this week. See you when I see you next with hopefully better news.